Thank you. Hello, everybody. Post-lunch slot. I hope there's not too much soporific feeling out there. The good news is that for the first bit of the afternoon, you get me. Not just me. You'll be relieved to hear. We've got something slightly different now. We've got an opportunity to explore, as Robert said, perhaps a little bit around where coaching is and what the future is and what the future for Animas is. And so it's not just a conversation with myself. I am going to invite up onto the stage the founder and CEO of Animas, Mr. Animas himself, and the reason that we are all here together today, Nick Bolton.
Thank you.
So take a seat.
Thank you.
Look at that. Can you feel the heat?
We haven't got the whiskey.
I am still slightly concerned about these glasses. There's just no way I'm going to be able to reach those. But anyway. So Nick, this is great stuff. So we're here just to explore, as we've talked about, where we feel we are with coaching and everything. But before we get into that, I know that you've been away on a retreat with your team to Bulgaria. So I want to know just a little bit about what's come out of that for you and your business.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, good afternoon, guys. It was interesting. I think Trisha, I think I was standing over there, and I think Trisha said that she felt, I think it was you that said that nerves, was that you, Trisha? And that it's nice to hear other people feel nervous. Well, let me just assure you that I've been running this business for 9 years now, and I feel nervous. I think it's part of being human, that when we put ourselves out in front of other people, we start to wonder, what have I got to say? What have I got to offer? What's of value here? So first of all, I want to acknowledge that. And can I ask you guys to give a huge round of applause to the speakers who've gone and will go, because it's amazing to what they're doing. So thank you. I think it's hard to imagine sometimes what it's like to put yourself in the spotlight. So I really appreciate all you guys doing it. So Marcus, back to your question, the retreat. A lot of you might have seen there's been a lot of shifting in my team over the last few years. The two people are sort of resolute stalwarts, and that's Rob and Karen. They've been with me for a number of years, but there's a lot of new faces that you've seen probably coming through. And so I decided to take them to Bulgaria to, well, first of all, it's really sunny. That was a nice starting point. Secondly, Roman, at the very back there. Give us a little wave, Roman. Roman just sort of approached me out of the blue and said, hey, I run retreats. And I was like, well, could you recommend me? I said, well, I can't recommend you if I've not done one with you. So that sounds like a good excuse. Let's do a retreat to Bulgaria. So that's how it started. The purpose for me was to reconnect us to our vision. And I wasn't really sure what that was going to be. I mean, I have a sense of what our vision is. I have a sense of what we stand for. But things shift. It's interesting, listen to Catherine today talk about how she changed perspectives, changed business, changed brand, changed her clients. That happens. And it's happened for me. In fact, one of the things I would say is I was standing there listening to the guys this morning. I thought, wow, this is a snapshot. What's happening today is a snapshot of where I think coaching is going and what I think Animas is responding to. For instance, we have people who are setting up as independent coaches. We have internal coaches. We have coach consultants, i.e. people who work in a sort of consultancy model with coaching. We have people doing social impact work. We have people blending coaching with other creative approaches. And we have a traditional kind of full-on one-on-one coach who's doing that work. And to me, that's the future of where coaching is going. That coaching becomes a skill, not an identity, that we start to embrace as something that fits into the work we do. So when I look at this summit today, I think this is a little microcosm of what I think coaching is moving towards, which is coaching as a quality of being with other human beings that creates change, whatever that context might be. That's what I think our school is responding to in a way that perhaps no other school fully is. And the reason I took the guys to Bulgaria was to say, hey, what do we stand for? Do we still agree on this? And interestingly enough, we essentially didn't shift our vision at all. We started off in 2015 with the plan to be the world's leading coaching school in terms of impact and influence by 2025. That was in 2015. 2 years in, we are well into that. And I seriously made some huge progress. But I wanted to check that we still believed that. And it isn't about being the biggest necessarily, and it's not necessarily about even being the best, because the best is often 3, 4, 5 times more expensive. But it is about having the biggest impact, which is about the number of people whose lives we touch and the number of lives they touch. But in turn, how we influence the profession of coaching. I feel like there's a shift taking place in coaching that we are responding to, and I think other coaching schools are responding to, which is that coaching is no longer that toolbox approach. It's something to do with human beings being together. Now, as I say this, I'm conscious I'm totally ignoring Pro and Marcus. I'm not being with Marcus very well, but I do want to be with you guys.
Don't worry about me, it's fine. I'm going to get down and get a glass of water.
This is your chance. It's your chance to climb down. So I think, for me, the Bulgaria retreat was about, first of all, that vision. Secondly, I listened to a podcast a while back from the founders of Airbnb. I actually put this on the lounge. You guys would have seen it on the lounge, where the founder of Airbnb asked himself the question, what would a 11-star service be? And he started off with 1 star. What would a 1-star service be? And it was kind of pitching up to somebody's home, and the key is under a mat, and the heating's not on, and you have to get in and put your own heating on. And he went all the way to 11-star. And 11-star was you arrive in the city for your Airbnb, and you're greeted with a limousine, and out pops Elon Musk. And Elon Musk decides he's going to take you to space. And there's a fanfare throughout the whole city. That was 11-star. And they realized that was unrealistic. But what is realistic somewhere between 1 star and 11? He called that 7-star. And so a lot of the journey we took in Bulgaria was, how do we create a 7-star service for you guys? And things were always changing. We had to change venue very, very suddenly. And I know that somebody in this room who actually said, Nick said that you were going to do a 7-star service. Well, that didn't feel like 7-star this weekend. And there are always going to be these little muddy moments where we have to try to figure out how do we operationalize this journey we're on. But the truth is, in our heart of hearts, we want Animas to represent the 7-star business for coaching. And that isn't just about the skill of coaching. It's about supporting you in your journey as coaches, be that gaining the skills of coaching, be that creating a community for you as coaches, be that helping you start businesses, deepen your practice, and really go on a life journey as a coach. One thing I'd say is I think once you become a coach, there's no going back. I don't know if you guys feel that, but once you become a coach, there's no going back from it. You can't rewind to being the kind of all-knowing expert guru that we start off before coaching. We can't rewind to being the kind of person that interrupts people and asks them loads of knowing questions. It's hard to rewind that. So you find yourself slightly an alien in a world that does that traditionally. So then you've got to belong somewhere. Where's that belonging? Well, for us, that belonging is the community of Animas. So that's what it's all about, Marcus.
Yeah, that is what it's all about. There's a lot in there,
yes.
Nick. There's a lot in there. And what that makes me think about is this lifetime journey that we at Animas would love to be able to take people on. And the question in my mind is, what sort of qualities and values would you like our Animas coaches to have?
It's a good question. Robert and I both trained at the same coaching school many, many years ago, and the thing we learned back then was the GROW model. And you guys know that we teach the GROW model still, and it's a decent tool to get started. But the truth is, it's very limited. And what I've experienced as a coach growing up, if you like, over the last 18 years, is that in the end, it's about courage. Most of you probably know where the word animas comes from. A lot of people hear the anima part. Anima is Latin for life and spirit. What they don't hear is the animus part, which is spelled with U, which means the seat of courage. And animas was my attempt to create the metaphor for living life courageously. I don't think it's just about the clients living life courageously. I think it's about the coaches. I think it's about how do you as a coach courageously? It's interesting, listening to, I think it was Brad this morning, facing a challenge with one of his potential clients. Or it might have been Patrick, sorry, I've forgotten. But my sense is that we have to step up to a new level of courage to confront our clients with their patterns, which aren't about just facilitating them out of it, but really naming it in a way that's strong, that has courage behind it. It doesn't mean we're right. It doesn't mean that what we see is right, but it means that what we see has some possibility for value, and we have to have the courage to name that stuff. So the biggest value, I think, that comes from coaching as a school is for you guys to be the most courageous coaches you can be. I hear a lot of questions from coaches around, underneath what they actually ask me is, am I following the rules? Now, if the question you're asking yourself is, am I following the rules, you're not coaching. It's as simple as that. If the question is, am I following the rules, you're not coaching. Coaching is about being together with somebody in an authentic way, but in a courageous way that helps them see what are they doing. Or indeed, if you are, say, contracted in by an organization, what are they doing? I know. It was the question around if this person doesn't want to coach and train too much, how should I manage that? You name it. You name it. Hey, I can't be your coach if you think that my job is to not coach too much. If you think my job is to not let your staff leave when they're unhappy, I'm not your coach. That takes courage. I was talking to a supervisor recently, and she was bemoaning the fact she had 6 sessions to make some impactful work with her clients. I said, why have you got 6 sessions? That's the contract. I said, did you challenge the contract? No. Because she was worried about losing the contract, losing the money. At that point, you're no longer being a courageous coach. If you don't believe you can make the impact you want to make in 6 sessions, you've got to be open about that. You've got to tell people that. You've got to tell the sponsor. You've got to tell your client. You've got to be super honest and say, hey, that work you want me to do, I don't think that's a 6 conversation piece. Now, if you want me, the coach, to do the work you want to be done, we've got to change it. Do you want to do that or not? That's the conversation. It's courage. Now, within that, Marcus, just to build on that, I also think there's the flip side of that, which is compassion. Because I think courage, the danger of courage is that we become too challenging. But actually, human beings are very, let me say this, I'm going to say this, but then ignore what I say. Human beings are very frail in some ways. They're also incredibly resilient. But we have a lot of frailty around our ego, or frailty around, are we doing this right, or frailty around whatever. And so we have to be compassionate about the inbuilt need for humans to be approved, to feel okay, to not feel rejected, all that stuff that's perhaps bred in us from the savannas of Africa when we're leaving the African homes of our 2 million year ago ancestors. The fear of rejection, the fear of being cast out of the tribe is still with us. So we have to have compassion for the real human experience, and we need to confront them courageously to step outside of that stuff. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. The 2 C's.
2 C's,
Compassion and
absolutely.
courage. Yeah.
The 2C model.
Well, absolutely. I'm sure there's more than that. And that makes me think, actually, about when I first discovered Animas, and that slightly interesting story about how I found it. But the thing that really drew me in, I think, for me, was the authenticity and genuineness that I felt ran through the organisation. And I've always been curious, I've got my chance to put this question to you now, about how do you maintain that I think most of our students and coaches will feel as part of the DNA of the organisation. How do you balance that against the need to run a commercially viable coaching school?
Interesting. When we were in Bulgaria, we had a conversation around what are our values, and we started to talk about values like honesty, which we really, really are. Like, ever so often, we might be dishonest by accident, as in we say something because it just flips off our tongue. And then we always get caught out. We had a situation once where we had to cancel a workshop, and one of the members of the team said, oh, sorry, they were trying to encourage more sales to try to get it to work. And the person said, it's a tight deadline, and we're kind of nearly sold out. We weren't, it was the opposite. And that came back to bite her in a very small way. So, honesty really, really matters to us. And ever so often, like any human being, you get it wrong, but it matters a lot. But what we recognized when we were talking about it is some of these things are black and white. They're not things we have to put on a chart and say, honesty is our value. It just is. It's just there. And I think authenticity is the same for us. I don't say to Rob or to Karen or to Evelina, how could you be more authentic today? It's like they come to me and my school and they come to my team because it's bred in the bone. And if they felt that my desire to challenge them around that made them feel awkward, they would leave. And so rightly so, by the way. This is why I think Brad and Patrick's conversation was so important, is rightly so they should leave if they don't fit the culture. And rightly so, I should be naming stuff that doesn't fit the culture for me. So for authenticity, I feel like I'm shouting at you, Marcus, sorry. No, I'm passionate. But I think authenticity is like, authenticity is absolutely in our bones without question. What we discovered when we thought about it in Bulgaria was, what are the values we need to move towards to take us where we want to get to? What I challenged the guys to think about was, what's got us here won't get us there. And some of the values we are currently living may not get us to the next level. That's because they're different from human values, they're business values. Now, you guys don't need to know those values, because that's more how we operate as a team, or how I think as an entrepreneur. But nonetheless, what I recognized was, to get to that stage, there was a different set of values we needed to focus on, whilst keeping those black and white values that are just who we are as human beings, that we just don't need to even think about. Like, none of my team would be dishonest. Not because it's on a chart, it's just not who they are.
No, that's lovely. I think that's a really nice answer, actually. Now, that fits with certainly my view of working within the organisation, but before I was as well. So That's really lovely. So, I mean, you talk about not needing to know what your future values as a company are, but if we think about the future of coaching and Animas's role within that, I often hear you talking about redefining coaching. And I'm just interested to know, what do you mean by that, and what might that mean for us and for our coaches and students moving forward?
Yeah, interesting. Let me ask a little question to the guys here. This is a slightly awkward question to answer, because you might all have keep your hands down, or you might all put them up, or some smattering. I've got no idea what's going to come out. But when you describe yourself and what you do as coaching, who feels slightly awkward about that word? Right. That doesn't surprise me. When you think about what you do as coaching, who feels entirely proud of that word? Yeah, cool. It doesn't surprise me. It's roughly 50-50 or maybe 60-40 in favor of my first question. And I think that reflects on part of the challenge we have in our profession, which is the word coaching doesn't really represent what we do very well, I don't think. You know, I think if you're from a foreign land, you have less of an issue with this, because the word coach isn't in your bones with a particular meaning that we have when English is your first language. I think when we think of the word coaching, we naturally think of a certain sense that this person is coaching us towards improvement, that they have a sense of what needs to be done differently, that they are skilled in this thing, that you're a sports coach, a speaking coach, a business coach. You expect them, don't you guys, to almost like a mentoring comes to mind with that word coaching. Where I feel coaching is going is to create a dialogic space for human beings to explore what it is to be human in this very complex time. And by the way, I don't buy into this idea that we live in a supremely complex time that's more challenging than we've ever lived in. I can guarantee you, I would much rather live now than 1348 when the plague struck in Europe. I guarantee that. And I guarantee this, I would much rather live in 2017 than 1917, after the end of the First World War. So I don't buy into this idea that we live in this extremely tough world. I just think we're very fortunate to come across this thing called coaching, which now enables us to start to address how we are being human in our current era. It's interesting, Marcus, I don't think coaching has fully found itself yet, because in my sense of where Animas is going, where coaching is going, is that it's on a trajectory of growth from a lot of 20th century thinking, stuff like postmodernism, social constructionism, even the re-rise of existentialism. A lot of that stuff is now showing itself in coaching in a way that, say, the early noughties, when I first became a coach, it wasn't. Coaching was very pragmatic, it was very goal-focused, it was very all about tasks. Now it's about, hey, how am I being human in this world I'm in? Not because it's a particularly complex world. Yes, there's technological change. Yes, there's population explosion. Yes, there's all this stuff going on. That's not really the value of coaching. The value of coaching is that any human being at any point in history would have had an amazing space to explore who they're being. It just didn't exist. Interestingly enough, when I was in Nepal last year, I read a book. Actually, it was when I should have been at the summit last year. I apologize, I wasn't at last year's summit. I was scaling the heights of Mera Peak in the Himalayas. And I happened to read a book on personal construct theory by a guy called George Kelly. Anyone know personal construct theory? Woo! Personal constructs. So two people. I highly recommend you read about personal construct theory. It's coaching. It's coaching. I read it and I was like, this guy's talking about coaching, but it didn't have the soil to land in at the time. Back then, there are only really 3 significant schools of psychology that made any sense. There was behaviorism, there was a slight edging towards a humanistic approach, and there was psychodynamic. It had no soil to fall in. The little seed that it was had nowhere to germinate. And so this thing that could have been coaching didn't take root. It's taken root now. Not because we're in a special time, it just happens to have intellectually made sense right now. Which means that I think the journey for coaching and for Animas is to respond to, how is it to be human today? How is it to be human today? And the conversations that are going to start taking place in coaching are not, how do I achieve my next promotion? Although that might be what we're talking about as being human. It might be about, how do I get fit, or how do I get a girlfriend, or how do all these things. But ultimately, it's going to be asking, how is it to be human today? To be me? How am I making sense of my life? And that's moving to dialogue, not coaching. Because how do I coach you on what it is to be you?
It's a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I love the passion that comes across when I talk to you, Nick. It's brilliant. So, I mean, if that is a misnomer, and we think that coaching is not the right term, despite the fact that we all call ourselves coaches, then are we going to be the organisation that redefines that?
I think we're stuck. I mean, my gut feeling is we're stuck with coaching as a word. So our job is to transform the meaning of the word coach at the embodied level. Does that make sense? At the embodied level, because we still have a feeling of what coaching means, even though we then describe it intellectually as being something different. We go, oh, but it's not really coaching. It's like, I don't actually give you any answers. We have to re-justify why it's not coaching. Just in the same way that when Carl Rogers created this thing called counselling, or person-centered therapy, as it was, eventually counselling, they don't counsel. When you go to a counsellor, you don't get counselled. We understand that now. So the word counsellor has a new meaning. We've got to do that with coaching. But what I want coaching to do, what I want Animas to do, is be at the forefront of coaching meaning dialogue. Not coaching meaning a process of, not a process of deliberate change, because I don't really care if change happens or not. What I care about is dialogue. Rich, authentic dialogue takes place.
Changing the meaning of the word as opposed to changing the word itself. But if the word exists elsewhere in other fields,
we have to stamp it out.
Yeah. But then it could become confusing, couldn't it? I've spent 3 years trying to explain to my wife what I do.
Yeah.
I still don't think she has a clue about it.
And that's not even coaching. That's like doing the dishes.
I tried 3 years trying to tell her what she should do as well, and that doesn't work. I can tell you that much. Yeah. So
I do take your point about confusion, and you might be right. It might be that as we go on this journey as a school, we do go, you know what, that word coaching, let's drop it. The phrase I'm super passionate about and that I want to grow into is transformational dialogue. But I'm just not sure what your job title would be. Are you a dialogician? And try and explain that one to your wife.
Yeah, no, good point. It's going to take a bit of...
I don't know.
No.
And do we need to worry about it? What I do care about is what are the skills that these guys come out with that means they don't feel this urge to create change. What they feel is the urge to create dialogue. Yeah. That's what I want to come out of this. Okay,
well, that's great stuff, and that's all out there in the future. But just for a minute, let's have a look at Animas next year. Animas is always changing.
Yeah.
There's the one thing that I can be sure about is that I will know something one week and I won't know it at all the next week. So one of the things there's been a lot of change this year, which I think has all been good. We've got a new venue, we've had the podcasts, there's a new marketing team in place, there's a new branding style. It's all great, and there's a much greater clarity around what we do, I think, as a school. So what is coming forward that you're aware of in 2018?
It's very funny you pick up on the speed of change, and so confession time. I am, in my heart of hearts, an entrepreneur. I am a coach, I am a supervisor, but in my heart of hearts, I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs love change. We thrive off change. We want to change everything all the time. It's how we do it. But my team have said, Nick, enough. Literally, the conversation, they didn't quite say it as aggressively as that, but the conversation in Bulgaria was, Nick, we need more stability. Like the speed that you keep introducing change is not just disconcerting to us, but potentially disconcerting to the students and to the qualified coaches, etc. So there will be change, but what we're hoping to be is more strategic and somewhat more grounded in the speed of change. Now, having said that, what's coming?
Yeah. Massive list, all by next week.
Actually, before I do that, let me just give some context for the whole point of this conversation. Is that I've just stopped doing the introduction days, but I've did them for a number of years. And literally, Karen and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we said, we never tell people who come into our introduction day who we are. We talk about coaching, we talk about them, we talk about where coaching's going. We never actually say, hey, now let's tell you about Animas. We tell them about the course, but not Animas. And so the reason why I felt this was going to be a really interesting conversation for the guys here, not just for me and you, was that we recognized that you often don't have context for the organization that Animas is and what we stand for. We don't really do enough to share where we're going as a company that you can then build from. It makes sense? I think there's a lot of opportunities popping up for you guys as Animas does its thing. So what's coming next year is it's actually going to be pretty stable next year. The thing we recognized is that we have become supremely, supremely good, like ludicrously good. I really like Catherine's confidence. I don't know if you noticed a few times Catherine said, I'm really good at. Like, I think recognizing what you're really good at is so important when you're a coach or business person. We have become supremely good at recruiting new coaches. We are easily the fastest growing coaching school in the UK, by far. Let me give you some context. There's a company called Plimsoll Research. They research the industry. They said there's only one company growing faster than 10% a year. That's Animas. We've grown by 100%. So we're so far ahead of the other schools, it's unbelievable. So we're supremely good at that. What we're not so good at is supporting you guys on your next steps. We're very good at this. Nice communities, allow you to feel connected. But what do we do? It was funny when Catherine says she supports 20 people per year, and that wasn't good enough for her. I feel the same. For the last 4 years, we've done Launchpad every year. I've supported 12 people each year. 12 out of 180 last year, 12 out of 350 this year. It starts to look a bit silly. So what we're looking at is how do we put in place a structure that you guys can access and utilize to support your practice building efforts in a way that really brings numbers. Because it's not okay anymore for me to go like, well, I supported 12 out of 350, that's peanuts. So we've got to figure out that. So Robert's been on a mission to develop something called the Professional Coach, which is coming, where is Robert? April. So the Professional Coach is coming in April time. The Professional Coach will give us a much greater leveraged approach to supporting you guys to build businesses. So that's number one. Number two, and this is really big for me, Marcus, and I've only come to this recently. This actually came clear to me 2 weeks ago. So this is like super fresh news. Like, as in my team don't know this. They've had inklings. But I said I want to speak to Mum and Dad before I go any further. Mum and Dad being Karen and Robert, because they know me too well, and they're like, "Yes, son, take a step back." But Son is on stage, and so Son will. What I've recognized is that nobody can take forward the transformational dialogue notion other than me right now. I've been on a mission to step out of Animas for the last 2 years. When I say step out, I don't mean like step out of the company as a whole, but step out of delivery. And I've been looking at how do I create the system that delivers the quality of training that we've been known for without me having to be involved at all. And that's been a great journey. But I recognize that transformational dialogue, you said passion, Marcus, you said I love your passion. I'm so passionate about where transformational dialogue can take us as a profession. And right now, I believe I'm the only person that can do that. So what's coming next year is that I will be leading 2 very intense programs on transformational dialogue. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how long it's going to be. All I know is I want to train some people on the art of transformational dialogue and identifying within those groups my next generation of trainers for that very concept, so that I don't do it forever, but it's coming. Like, I don't think Animas can move forward in the way I want to unless I go back into delivering that philosophy.
Right. So how would you crystallize your role in the company right now? If you were to describe it to somebody, what would you say?
That's really interesting. I'm a huge fan of Jim Collins. Any of you guys know Jim Collins? He's not the drummer, that's Phil Collins. Jim Collins he's a great business writer. He wrote a couple of great books, Good to Great, Built to Last, Great by Choice, fabulous business writer. He talks about the clock builder versus the time teller. And a lot of people are time tellers. They tell the time for the clients, whatever that might mean. Like, they might coach, they might do therapy, they might teach how to sell, they might, whatever it might be. And without them, there's no time being told. I'm a clock builder. My ambition is to make Animas the world's leading coaching clock. such that the clock does the time telling. And what I mean by the clock is that you guys do it. You're out there doing the work. I was talking to somebody earlier, Steve, who does work with NGOs. Where's Steve gone? There. He does work with NGOs. And I was saying that my ambition is to create the conditions and create the space where you guys can start to self-manage, self-organize, self-actualize, not because we give you something, but because we give you the space to do stuff. And so my role now is to create the best clock where not only do we train coaches, but we facilitate coaches to be what they want to be at every level, finding clients, doing huge social impact work, changing the world. I mean, I really mean that. Like, for me, by 2025, Animas will have changed the world. I'm not sure how, but it will have done.
Wow. That's amazing. That sounds great.
Really?
Come on. Anyway, look, it feels like we've been talking for quite a lot. So this is your opportunity, guys, to have access to Nick and to ask him anything, well, I guess within reason or anything. Anything you like. Why not?
Anything.
So who's got a question for Nick? We've got Kevin at the back there.
Was it Kevin? He's looking very laid back. I'm a bit scared now. He's looking like he's going to pounce. Go on, Kevin.
Grr. So I'm just trying to get my head around what I just heard.
So am I, don't worry.
He's got a script there, Nick. He's got a pre-prepared question, I can see.
So as a coach, or as an identity, I kind of saw myself as an agent of change. Sounds a little pretentious now I'm saying it. And you've mentioned transformational dialogue. I love the idea of dialogue and us as coaches creating a space for such a thing to commence. And I'm wondering, does that mean that we have to expand our range in order to meet that? Because a lot of the work that I do is around creating a relational space for conversations that matter. So I'm wondering, and in order to do that, in order to get to that place, what I'm doing is I'm blending design thinking, facilitation, and coaching. So I struggle with, am I a coach or am I not a coach? What am I?
And does it matter?
Yeah, does it matter? Yeah.
Like, what does it matter whether you're a coach or something else?
But the thing is that, you know, I was having this conversation a bit earlier about pigeonholing, right? How do we describe who we are or what we do in the world? Like, for example...
Kevin, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's really interesting when somebody asked Catherine the question around what if, you know, should you have your name? I think it was Todd, is it? Yeah, Todd asked that question, should I build a brand on my name? Well, really great idea, definitely, from a tactical point of view, but really at the bigger level, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, just be. Just start doing the work. Brad is such a great example of somebody who gets his work through connection. When you connect, you don't need an elevator pitch. You don't need a title. You need connection. Kevin, you're a connector. Yeah. So you don't need a title. You just need you. You are the best business card you'll ever have in the world. Now, I get that there are some businesses that rely more on websites, and at that point you need a message and blah, blah, blah. And I know that Catherine and I had a conversation recently about niching, and I'm not anti-niche. It's really funny how many people afterwards said, Nick, I know you don't like niches. No, I love niches if it's what you want to do. I want you to be passionate about what you do. That's my number one, is don't have a niche that you're not passionate about. Now, to come back to your question, Kevin, do you need to expand your range? I don't know. What I would suggest you probably need to do is access more of your current range. Like what came up for me when you asked that question was access more of your current range. What I feel happens is coaches limit themselves because they are following the rules of coaching. They forget that they're a human being first and foremost, which means that your experience of being a human being is equally valid as your client's experience. It doesn't mean you have the answers, but you have experience. Your thoughts are as valid as theirs. Doesn't mean they're the right thoughts, but they have value. I suspect that most of you are curtailing the amount of contribution you can make to your clients because you're following the rules. Now, I get also that Animas teaches a certain part of that spectrum, and to qualify with us, you have to show us that you've understood that part of the spectrum. But we don't go and audit you afterwards. We don't go and audit you in your real life. So access everything that makes you who you are first and foremost. And so I would say, first, my challenge to you, Kevin, is are you currently accessing everything that makes you you, or are you somehow limiting yourself for fear of breaking the rules or not doing it the way it should be done?
Actually, that's interesting because I feel I am. I'm accessing different parts of me.
In that case, it's time to expand your range. It's true. It's true. I mean, look, I don't have an answer for you. You have the answer.
Thank you for helping me get there.
Wow, great stuff. Okay. Am I going to have to change my introduction for you for the panel later now, as that's you've redefined yourself? Anyway, good stuff. Okay, another question at the back where Karen is. Thank you.
You said about entrepreneurs loving change and how that affects stability. Can you speak a little bit about entrepreneurs' needs for variety versus the power of focus, please?
Yes. I'm not sure it's the right question. Tell me more about your question. Let me understand what you're trying to get to.
So I guess some of my mantra has always been that I've loved variety, I like diversity, I like doing lots of different things, being able to choose between multiple options and opportunities. And some of the work that I do is with working with creatives, helping them to overcome overwhelm. And I've never really liked the idea of focus before, but everyone talks about, the, precision and laser light. And I'm coming to understand slowly its power, but I just wondered what your own perspective on it was as a coach and as an entrepreneur.
If you look at what I've done, I've built a system that does the focus. So Animas is very, very effective because it no longer relies just on me. If it was all about me, it would be a nightmare. I remember literally the very first ever foundations class I taught. Back in 2008, I guess there are no 2008ers in the room, I guess. No. I'm still in touch with some of them. And I remember that very first one. And I created the course, I sold the course, and in the interim from selling it and delivering it, I totally changed it, but I forgot to tell them. So halfway through the weekend, one of them said to me, Nick, when do we get to choose our specialisms? And I was like, oh, I got rid of that. So if Animas was purely about me, it wouldn't be what it is today. I cannot tell you how important the team is to the experience you get. So yes, you need focus, but if you're not so what's your name?
Lorraine,
sorry, I missed you for a sec. Lorraine, if you're not happy being focused, don't focus. Let me challenge you to think about this. When you're on your deathbed and the coffin is right next to you and you're going to tip into it, how do you want to be feeling about the life you've led? That is the most important question you've got ahead of you. When I look at Animas, I don't choose things that I feel are going to take me off track as a human being, even if they're less effective from a business strategy perspective. I don't care, because I've got to feel like I'm doing the right thing for Nick Bolton, first and foremost, because I've got to live with me 24 hours a day. You probably have to live with yourself 24 hours a day, I'm guessing, and it's tough work doing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 for all your life, so you better make it work. So my gut feeling is, first of all, check in what's true for you. If focus isn't serving you, don't yet focus. Do what Kath said, experiment, get active, allow things to show themselves. The risk I see in a lot of coaches, well, not so much the risk, but the mistake, if you like, is they try to focus too quickly before they've really tuned into what matters to them. Get busy, get active. The world will soon tell you what works and what doesn't work, but more importantly, you'll feel what works for you. So I don't really have a great answer other than, ultimately, yes, business thrives on focus, but then you need a system that delivers that focus if you're more of an entrepreneur.
thank you.
So that raises quite an intriguing question for me, Mr. Bolton.
Okay.
If later tonight you were lying on your bed and the coffin was next to you and you were about to tip into it, where you are now, would you have any regrets?
I don't think so. Let me just check in to make sure I'm congruent. I don't think so, because I'm so constantly checking into myself, not necessarily consciously, but I feel it. When I'm off track, I feel it, and I make sure I get back on track. Like the team know, I've been through a bit of a journey recently of disconnecting from Animas, not because in itself it doesn't have the right value for me, but I wasn't necessarily doing the right thing within it. So one of the journeys that we took in Bulgaria was to accept that unless the team can fully manage the existing system, I can't do my work of building transformational dialogue. I'm stymied by the fact that I'm still operational in the existing system. And I can't be that person anymore. So the team know that the priority is to get me out of the operational system as it stands. Otherwise, I can't do the work I really want to do, which is move the coaching profession towards transformational dialogue. Influence and impact. It's going to be our two big words, influence and impact. I can't do that if I'm worried about, is the discovery day got enough people in? To pay salaries, that kind of stuff, right? So do I have no regrets? No, not at all, because it doesn't mean I'm happy where I am. It just means I'm aware of my dissatisfactions and I'm dealing with them rather than living with them.
Good stuff. Okay, so we've got time for more questions. Who has got something they would like to put to Nick? Okay, we'll take that question first and then I'll come down to Livy.
Thanks. Okay, bit scared to ask a question. I think I'm going to get coached across the floor, but it's just around this word coaching, actually, and picking up a bit of a conflict possibly in what you're saying, in that we kind of need to redefine this word. So within that, I'm kind of feeling like a personal responsibility to go out and redefine the word of coaching. And I kind of feel that anyway, because I've come across a lot of horror stories around coaching throughout my time. And in fact, I posted up something on the lounge about something I heard the other day, about something that happened in a corporate environment, which is pretty horrific. And whenever I hear stories like that, I feel like a personal responsibility to represent that word or redefine it, as you say. But I'm sort of picking up the conflict in you're talking about breaking the rules, not following the rules. And so I'm a little bit worried about, how to kind of manage that conflict about representing the word, redefining the word coaching in a really positive way, but around breaking the rules as well. So does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I wonder whether you're misinterpreting my language around breaking rules. The breaking rules is stop feeling so stymied by the behaviours you think equal coaching. So there's a set of things that we then equate to this is coaching. My point is that's not coaching, or at least it doesn't have to be. Somebody recently said to me, what was the question they asked? I forgot. Sorry, I'm attempting to cast my mind back. But the outcome of the conversation, I've forgotten what they actually said. The outcome was, if everybody follows the rules, coaching will never move forward. We have to move it forward by breaking the rules. Like, it's not going to change because all of us get together and say, hey, Mr. ICF, can we change, please? No, it changes because somebody decides to behave differently. And then other people go, that was really interesting. When Eric DeHaan from Ashridge started talking about relational coaching, people got interested in relational coaching, and so the coaching profession shifted towards more like, what's the thing that's happening between us that's never been looked at before? When Reinhard Stelter from Copenhagen talked about third-generation coaching and bringing shared dialogue and almost like a question of what's your philosophy of courage and what's mine, and having a dialogue rather than a pure Q&A, people listened. He didn't first of all go to the ICF and say, is that okay? He changed it. And then when somebody changes it, there are ripples that take place. So you break the rules, but then the ripples of that rule breaking either have a longer term impact or it just becomes a rule break. And if it's just a rule break, you'll be alone and people will snigger at you and laugh and say, did you see Olivia broke the rules? But they might be the one that go, did you see how Olivia changed the profession? And only by doing something differently will you see the result of that. But in the end, the only reason why we don't do that is because we're afraid of rejection, we're afraid of people laughing, we're afraid of the ICF banning us. I mean, whatever you're afraid of, get rid of that fear, because one day you're going to look back and say, damn, I should have just been me.
So I think the future of Animas is you're going to help us to be these courageous, compassionate coaches, get rid of our fear, and get out there and change the world.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh, good.
In a nutshell. Good. Okay, we've got time for one more question. Libby.
Is it working? Dramatic moment.
Tension builds.
Hi, Nick.
Wow. What kind of a question is this going to be?
It's really interesting to experience the force of your kind of power and your passion in my life in the last year since joining that first conversation we had when Karen didn't answer and I got you and we talked about all the modules I said, where's Shadow? Where's Shadow?
Where's Shadow?
And I was just set to go and do transformational psychotherapy instead of coaching, which I thought was a bit piss weak. But now I think otherwise. So it's been a really interesting journey so far.
Good.
And I'm really grateful to everybody here. So what I want to do is kind of maybe speak a little bit of truth to power, which is what Hetty Einsick talks about in her wonderful book, The Future of Coaching. She's also a transpersonal psychotherapist and a coach. So it's something about resilience. So when I experience your power and your passion, I can connect with that in myself. And I know that it takes me beyond resilience, sometimes out of balance. So because you have such an impact on our community, I just want to, say quite directly to you that when I see you working all hours, harder and harder and harder, and when I worry about whether you're really, really happy and whether it's fulfilling you, I think about the impact that has on all of us. And I just want to directly challenge you to really care for yourself and be happy, because I think it has an impact on all of us. And I just want that for you, okay?
So thank you, Libby. Libby actually came to do is it okay if I share very briefly a conversation? It was my stuff, not yours, so it's no confidentiality. So Libby came to do an interview with me, and in that interview I was very tired. like drained. But I wasn't drained because of working hard, Libby. A little bit like Catherine said earlier, she's working really hard, but she's doing the stuff that she's meant to do. But I was drained because I felt I wasn't on purpose at that point. It wasn't long ago. I mean, I've already said to you that I felt I was off track with Animas. I'm not quite sure why, but somewhere, you might have seen I've gone super quiet on the business lab as well. It's because I just feel like I'm going through a very fallow period of reconnecting to something that matters more to me than what was happening. But this is what I mean by tuning in to what's true for you in the moment. So do we have moments where you're off track? Of course. The question is, do we tune into them and get back on track? That was why I decided to take the guys to Bulgaria, is partly just for myself to get back on track. So it's very easy to, I don't know, how are we doing for time?
We are, okay, we've got 2 minutes.
All right. So it's very easy to get off track and then stay off track because you haven't got the courage or the clarity or the decision-making skills to get back on track, whatever that might mean. I feel I do, Libby. And I shared with Libby at the time that I wasn't sure where I was going to take myself within Animas. I even said I might get an external CEO to run the company. Now I don't feel that. That was a month ago. So you can get back on track emotionally very, very quickly. And it's interesting, I was working till 3 a.m. a couple of nights ago. We've had this massive, I mean, you don't need to know the boring detail, but we've shifted to Salesforce and all this kind of stuff. That's a lot of hard, boring work, but I don't care, because it's now taken me where I wanted to go. So thank you, Libby, and I feel great.
Great stuff. Thank you, Libby. Okay, I've got one final question for you, and actually it sort of links in with that and the sort of self-care stuff. Now, I know you're a big adventurer, and you love going off and doing your cycling and walking trips. Yeah. So my last question to you is, do you have your next adventure planned or an idea of what you want to do?
I do. So in May, so I'm now making this public. Oh my goodness me. So I'm going to make this public. You've got to hold me to it. So in May, I'm cycling to Marseille. Wow. Yeah. So from Dieppe to Marseille, it was an idea. It keeps sticking, and when an idea sticks, I know I'm going to do it. So it's about 900. I mean, it's not it's not like a crazy cycle. It's 900 miles, but it'll take me
long enough.
No, but like when I say, like, to give context, I have a dream to cycle around the world. So Marseille feels like just a little tiny step, but yes, thank you.
How long are you planning to take to do that?
Probably 3 weeks.
Right.
So I can enjoy, a bit of baguette and wine on the way.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great. Okay, I think we're sort of up for time, so I'd just like to thank you all for your questions. I'd like you to give a big hand to Mr. Nick Bolton for his candidness today. Thank you.